I'm just going to cover some very basics of access, just creating the actual database and the first initial table, and we're going to add a few things to it. This is probably literally the first thing that you'll be asked to do. So you just want to open access, select blank database, just call this project 1. Probably going to want to select a location. I'm just going to save mine straight to my desktop and create. So that's actually creating the database. If you need to create another table, you go to the Create tab and select Table. For now, we'll just actually hit this. Same thing as deleting it since there's nothing in it. You can't actually change the name until you add something to the table. So now we can close this. It'll automatically act for you if you want to save it. We'll call it tblORDERTRANS and OK. Now we need to reopen that. And we're going to add a few new field names, set some data types, default values, things like that. So first off, we're just going to add the customer number. Tab over, call it number. Then we're going to do the trans date, set it to date time. Product number, we'll just call ProdNum. Again, set it to number. We'll do quantity just as QTY. Data type is number. New charge, data type currency. New payment. Data type currency. And posted, which will be for actually adding it. I'll rename this real quick with the capital C. Doesn't really change anything, it's just how I like to do it. So now we're going to come back and add our validation rules, our default values, make them read-only and things like that, and validation text. So we're going to first come into customer number, and I don't think we're going to actually add an input mask to this, but we're going to add a default value of 111. Validation rule, we're going to make it between 3 digits, so it has to be greater than or equal to 100 and less than or equal to 999. So then for our validation text, we'll just say, please enter $990. Alright, and this field is required, so if you double click that, it'll change to yes, or you can click the drop down menu and change it to yes. I just saved it, that's why I blinked. We come down to validation or default value. Less than or equal to date, and then the open and close parentheses. What that's going to do is it's automatically going to fill in, or it's going to make sure it is before or equal to today's date. Actually, sorry. That's how we're supposed to put into the validation rule. With the default value, you don't need the less than or equal to. Just put in date and the parentheses, and it will do today's date. Got a step ahead of myself. Validation text will say, please enter a date prior today. Something like that. This one's also going to be required. No need to index this one, meaning it's not going to need to increment. You can have multiple on the same day. And then we will go down to the product number and come to the default value. 11, because here we've actually been told it must be 2 digits. So it'll be greater than or equal to 10 Validation text, please enter a number Again, this one will be required. And this one we will have indexed, and yes, duplicates are okay. The reason for this is that you might have an order for multiples of the same product, or multiple orders for the same product. That's what this allows you to do. So then when it comes down to quantity, the default value will be set to 1. The validation rule is it cannot be negative, so greater than or equal to 0. Validation text, we can just say cannot enter a negative. This 2 will be required because if nothing else it will force it to be, well actually auto set to 1, but it will accept 0. Again, save. So for new charge, our default value will be 0 because we don't want to set it to charge them anything if they don't deserve that. But the validation rule is it cannot be negative, so greater than or equal to 0 once again. And again, we'll just say cannot be negative. Not, or actually this one we are going to require. I'm sorry, misspoke. New payment, the default value will stay 0. Don't have to pay right away. Validation rule is not equal, or greater than or equal to 0, so it cannot be negative. No real reason to put a validation text here. In this particular case, we're not actually going to add it to the form. So at a later date, you might want to come back and change that. We're not going to require it, and it's not going to be indexed. Posted, default value of 0. Validation rule is actually going to be equal to 0 or equal to 1. Later on, we can use this to actually decide if it's been posted or not. Validation text. Currently we're not going to put one in there because I believe in this example we're not actually going to use it. You can come back down here, go to datasheet view, and it's going to go ahead and fill in your basic stuff. At this time, we're just going to leave it like it is, and we will move on in the next